everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I'm here to look at a deck that just came in the mail today. I kind of had forgotten. I ordered this about, I don't know, I feel like it was the beginning of March maybe, and I kind of forgot about it. And this is coming from, I want to say the Netherlands or something, something like this. This is the K Lenormand, and I'm really excited about this this particular deck. I do not have the K Tarot. I had the K Tarot, but I didn't keep it. There was just something, I'm pretty particular about people, and there's just something about the people in that deck that just didn't quite resonate with me. It's an amazing deck. There are some absolutely stunning cards in it. And, you know, in my current way of keeping decks, I probably would have kept the deck. At the time, I was just, if I wasn't using it, I was, you know, trading it off, or I traded it. And that's just the way that I was processing decks at the time. Now I'm more inclined to just keep decks because there comes occasions in which you want to use them. But at the time, that's how I was managing my deck collection, and so I don't have that. However, I took a look at her. I'd seen it as she was painting it. I really liked some of the cards, and then I just never went back to kind of see the completed thing. And when I did, what I really was intrigued about on this was her use of perspective, which we're going to see is obviously we're going to look through the cards. I really liked her change in perspective on the cards. That it was something different and something unique in Lenormand decks that I've seen, and so that's what made me kind of pull the trigger on it. So let's zoom in a little bit closer here. And I know it's a little sunny, but it's just a beautiful day out. I'm recovering from being sick, and it just is nice to have the window open, cracked, with the sunshine coming in. So here we have it. It's the K Lenormand. It comes in like a cardboard box. You know, it's not, I would say, maybe as sturdy as like a Blue Angel or something, but it's a nice sturdy box. And it comes with a little stapled guidebook, which feels really nice. And it has a small image of the card, and then it has what looks to be, we'll look at what's in the front, but right now I'll just peek here. Nouns, so keyword nouns, if it's an activity, what the activity might be, and what kind of attributes, such as cocky or hurried or swift or those kinds of things. And then what it might mean as a person, what it might mean as advice, and timing factor. So we have that here. She talks about why read Lenormand. She talks about the classic cards. She talks about the particularities of the Anna K. There are 4 extra cards. There are 2 lilies, and then there's an extra pair of man and woman cards, and then there is 4th extra card is a wild card. And the reason she said that she has changed given you 2 lilies is that there are 2 ways of reading the lily card. One, the lily is about sex and sensuality, and the other one is about virtuousness and purity. And so she's kind of made them to go either way, or you can use them both for both aspects of the lily. And then there are 2 pair of man and woman cards for, of course, same-sex relationships. And, you know, kind of gives you some ideas on how to reading yes and no questions, things like that. Drawing cards, either a single card, not real fond of that idea for Lenormand, combination cards, how the meanings are presented, and then goes into the meanings. Let's see if there's anything past the So yeah, it looks like at the back then it goes into combining the cards. It goes into how to read the cards, you know, in terms of what order and these types of things. Traditional fixed and combination meanings, single card strings. Again, I really don't believe that... you know, you don't rarely ever read a single card, but she talks about that, and she does have a defense of single cards. But I do sometimes read them. When I'm reading a 9 card, I do look at the top single card of the upper left, and I do look at that as sort of an overall theme. So it's not that I never use it, but, you know, on a general pulling of cards, I'm not just going to draw a single card. It talks about, you know, kind of talks about for tarot readers if you're coming to Lenormand from tarot. And then it talks about the strings. It talks about small tableau, so the 9 card. And then it does go into the grand tableau and using houses and such as that. So you have quite a lot of information for an 84-page little white book. So it's like a pamphlet style, but it does feel nice. It feels real nice. It feels good. It feels good. So then the cards are split here. I'm not a huge fan of split things because putting decks back, I really don't like to split them back up again. It looks like they will fit without it, and I wonder if this will come out. Yeah, so I mean, you could just stick them in here. Then it will close, maybe stick a rubber band around them so you don't really have to stick them in. I'm just not a huge fan of this format, but I understand it because it does allow for, obviously, the guidebook. I don't tend to, obviously, use guidebooks a lot with Lenormand, so that's not something I'll need to access a lot. So let's open these up. Obviously, they do come shrink-wrapped. I like the backs with the stars on the back of it. And I probably will edge this black because you can see the front has a black edging and then the back is black, so it just kind of cries out to be edged in black. If I can get this one open, because it does have a little tab, but it doesn't seem to be working. It's not working. Okay, let's see if I can just get at it another way. Okay. So let's, all right. So does this mean, I guess they're not in any kind of order. Not a fan of that at all. So I am going to quickly go put them into order and come back. It has something to do with the printing. I know there's other decks that happens like that, and I just, no, not a fan of them not being in order. Just a minute. Okay, I'm back. They were in some kind of order. I'm not sure what it was, if it was just because the extra cards were on the top. I'm not entirely sure. I think I kind of messed up whatever was there, but there was in some kind of an order. But I got them all put into the correct order. This is the wild card, which I think, let's take a look at that real quick in the guidebook. I certainly wouldn't use a wild card in a Lenormand deck, but let me just take a look at what it is, just so we can see how it's used. I think it was at the end. Yeah, wild card. So this can represent any specific issue you assign to it, so it's a wild card. Something or someone who, which or who is indeterminable, can't be pigeonholed or allocated. As a person, it represents a querent, if you wish, a person with above. So it's also for transgender, gender queer. She talks about intersexed, so that you can use this for somebody who doesn't identify as male or female. You could use it just as the querent card. I'm not a huge fan of jokery figures, so this isn't something I would use myself, but I think that's kind of cool. You could use it as a querent card. Of course, you'd still have the gender of the other. You could just put it in as sort of a wild card and see what house it is in and what cards are around it. Again, when there are systems that are pretty solid, like Lenormand, I don't tend to add in extra cards. The exception to that might be the Hermes playing card oracle, or the maybe Lenormand, but those other cards are part of the tradition, so then it becomes a 52 card deck. But in general, I use wild cards, so that is nice to have that there, but not something that I would use to do readings. So here we can see what's really neat about this deck. Let me zoom it back out a little ways here. What's neat about this deck is that there are borders, and they're actually different colors. I thought they were black, but that was just this one. But the borders, she cuts into the borders with the images in interesting ways that I think makes it quite dynamic, and I really like the way that she does that. It's one of the things that I just think is really neat. So you can see there is a green border. We do have the traditional playing card, 9 of hearts, the title and the number very small. I do wish that the print was a little bit larger. However, if the cards are done correctly with Lenormand, especially when there's images involved, you should know what it is, right? It's a rider. You don't really need to look there unless you want to look for the specific information. So I'm kind of glad that it isn't obtrusive either, because I don't necessarily need names on my Lenormand decks. But what I do like, so you can see there is a border, but see how the fence post comes towards you. It like starts to bring you into the picture, which a lot of times people don't like borders because they feel like it blocks you out, but she kind of starts to pull you into the image, and or pull him out. So he's getting ready to leap over this fence out of the card, and I really like that, right? That looks really neat. It's just a neat way of doing things. I feel like this is like a Mongolian horse eraser here. I wonder if she says anything about the particular images. Again, I don't tend to look at Lenormand. No, so she doesn't talk about like the particular images, why she used it, but it kind of has a Mongolian feel to it. This is so beautiful, right? This is very much that, but looks like, realistic botanical. We have the painting. We have the bee here. It's a beautiful clover. I love these clovers. I left them out for the fairies. They are very prolific where I live, so they were everywhere. You can pull these little purple pieces out and suck on the tips, and it gets a very sweet, there's a sugary sweetness to it. So I just love this. It's beautiful. And again, you can see that the leaf is coming out, and in other places here where the image is pushing out of the border. Ship is, just fully out of the border. You can still see that the border is there, but it's like you're on the ship, right? And you are, kind of going to fall into this watery scene here, which I think is really gorgeous. Or you're just taking off from shore on this long journey. So sometimes I notice that when there isn't a solid border at the bottom to put the title, it gets to be less clear, obviously, than in a card in which you can have that text right on a solid color. But so far, I mean, we'll see at the size, you can still read it. And again, you should know that that's the ship. Here we have the beautiful house card. Again, you've got the flowers that are coming outside of the border here and the boundary that just sort of beckons you into the house. I just feel like Lenormand and Kipper are very much about a lot of what they're to do with is the public and the private spaces. And so I feel like this is kind of beckoning you into the private space of the home. Beautiful tree card. It looks to be like an olive tree, I suppose. Absolutely gorgeous. And the tree is just filling up and covering up the border here, which is gorgeous. love. See how the clouds are just literally starting to obscure the title? It's obscuring things. It's making things not clear. You have a very definitive light and dark, which is nice if you read that directionality in it. But I love the way that the clouds are actually starting to obscure the title. Here we have the beautiful snake, and we have in a pomegranate tree. I love this. It's just a snake because I do read the snake a little bit maybe differently than traditionally, and so I do like my snakes not to look particularly evil, but just to simply be snakes. And that's exactly what we see here. And it is really difficult to see where do these coils end. You know, for me, you're kind of not on a straight path. You don't necessarily know where on the coils that you are. And so this works really well. And I love how, again, we're sort of, we're kind of literally beckoning into the coils of the snake. It's really neat how she did this. Love the perspective here with the coffin. We're seeing the coffin down in the grave. There's not really any question here that something has ended. It's not even set up, you know, for like as they normally are, kind of set up for viewing. The coffin is all that is over, and it's the coffin is in the ground. The only thing left is obviously to put the dirt on the coffin, but then all you'd see was dirt. So I do quite like the way that she's done that. There's definitely a sense of finality there. Beautiful bouquet. You do see a person up at the top that has received and is happy about receiving the flowers that they have and or giving them to you, right? It could be either way. Beautiful, beautiful flowers. Again, spilling over the edge of the cards in a couple different places. It's just beautiful. It's really beautiful. I'm really love this particular deck. And thank you to Miss Anna K. The scythe has wheat in it. I just like my scythes to have wheat in it because it is a tool of harvest. Can it be a tool to accidentally chop your leg off? Yes. Can you pick it up as a weapon? Yes. But it is primarily used to harvest something. You are cutting something, but you are going to gain something from the work and from the cutting. And so I love that. And we have the grain falling out of the window. Here we have, this is kind of sad here. We do have a whip here, and we do have a broom at the top. Now what's interesting is that there's two connotations there, right? Okay, we can pick up this whip or this broom and clean up the mess. Or is someone about to get punished because they broke a plate, which is kind of harsh, right? That's harsher even than, you know, I guess I would think of a whip card. You know, if you stole something, you're going to get, you know, this kind of corporal punishment here. But the idea that somebody is going to get whipped because they might have broken a plate is a little bit, you know, that's a little harsh. But it does talk about aggression and about bullying and things of that sort of thing. But it is that idea of also cleaning up, this idea of repetitive motion here. And so, yeah, it's pretty powerful. This is quite interesting. So here we have birds, but there seems to be quite a tussle, and I think that they're all jumping into the water, but it's just this flurry, and you can definitely feel this like flurry of motion and energy, which is very much how I see the birds card, but in terms of the mind. So the mind is just full of chatter and flurry of motion and noise and splashing, and it just makes your brain really unclear. It's that sort of crazy motion that makes things unable to really know what's going on. So nervousness, chatter in the brain, these kinds of things there. So you can see that in the card. And I love this little bird here perched off to the side because it's almost like the answer says, you know what, get out of the fray, shut that down, right? And move forward here. Here we have the child card. Now, this is so sweet. You know, you've got the little bedroom, the little mobile, these kinds of things. Excuse me. She's the only person that you see facing to you. The rest of the people are facing away from you, which is quite interesting. But I do think she's adorable. Love this white fox here. Now, I love me a red foxes very much so, but this is really, really beautiful. I mean, look at that scene. He does look a little bit devious, which I like my foxes to not, but he's just smart. He's blending in. He's using his coat to his advantage. This is obviously like an Arctic fox. So he's being clever and smart. So I do, it's just beautiful. And I like the snow is overflowing the border. Love the bear. Love the bear with the baby bears. That idea of nurturing, strength, mother energy, mentoring, teaching them the the ways of the world. It just works really well, and it's just beautiful. It's an absolute, and it literally beckons you to come up to the top of this cliff point. It's just gorgeous how she's done this. Stunning star card. Obviously, we can kind of see the backings here in this. Let's see. It's not the exact. The stars aren't in the exact same position. Well, let me see if I flip it. Nope, the stars aren't exactly the same, but then you have this sort of swirling path here, almost of being part of the bigger path, which I love, into the galaxy there. It's just beautiful. A little bit, a little bit difficult to see that, but again, it's quite obvious it's a star card. Love, this is one of the reasons I was like, okay, I have to get this, because I complain all of the time about why storks are standing still in a card that is made for motion. And here's this stork who is flying across land masses. Like, this is movement. This is change of location. It's fantastic. So I had to get it because of that. As well. Look at the dog. He just so much trust here. I love that. I don't like to have leashes and collars in my dog cards, and I have to say I don't even think I noticed or recognized the leash here, but it doesn't look to me like it's even attached, because you don't need a leash with somebody who's your friend. Right? He's just holding, he's holding his own leash, which I quite like. If you're going to have a leash in a dog card, this to me makes sense, because it's that sense of, he doesn't even need that. He's not connected to you by the leash. He's connected because he trusts and loves you. I mean, look at that little face. Oh, look at that little face. Here we have the tower card. It's a tower. I like it. It's up and above. You can see it up in the clouds. It's a place to get up and out of yourself and get better perspective on things. It just works really well. It's a tower. Again, where it overlaps into the image, it gets a little bit harder to see, but you can still see enough to tell what it is. If you're new to, but again, tower. So the only reason I think you'd need to look here is for the Playing Card Association, and that is in a clear point, so that's good. Here we have the garden. We do see people. I like this. A lot of times, Lenormand gardens are empty of people. It's just like this empty garden, and yet it is a place in which, because that's traditionally how the images looked, but it is a place where we go to meet people. So it's not zoomed in enough, I think, where the people can be distracting, or that somebody's going to try to read into, well, this person is over here and doing this, and so that means it's not close enough to do that. But you can tell that it's an active garden. It's a garden in which there are people meeting each other and getting, making contacts and doing all the things that the garden card is about. So I really like that. I think she did a fantastic job. I'm really, really happy with this deck. Beautiful mountain. You can't even hardly look at that. You can't, all you see of the border is right here. There's a lot. But I like it. Again, it's that beckoning you. Yes, there is a mountain here. It is not insurmountable. Let's get about the business of making our way through this obstacle. Like, let's get on the path and start figuring out how to make our way across this obstacle. I just really like it. I'm going to say it a billion times. Love this in many directions, but you've got to choose one. You are literally, here we are, and we have come to this middle point. We've got to choose a direction to go. Love it, and love it. Mice card. Lots of destruction. You even have this little mouse up here who is chewing on the border. How adorable is that? But they are making a mess of things and eating things away big time, including the border. Too cute. I love the heart card. I do prefer there not to be people in cards in which are not people cards. So I do prefer like to just have a heart, but it's so beautiful. I really like this. And I have other decks that do have people in the heart card, but this is really beautiful, and I love how it's something that she's holding close to her heart. It's pretty. I do like it. This, I think, was also one of the cards that really was like, oh, I really like that. I like the, you know, the ring is more than just a card about getting married, although obviously that is one of its main attributes, but it is also about connections and what's partnerships and the ties that binds, the things that pull us together, that connect us, that she even has activities of bridging a gap, signing a contract. You're holding something together through the power of this connection, and it's just, you know, it's beautiful. It's really cool how she did that. I think that is really smart, and I love it. Here we have the book. It's in the library. I love libraries. I love books. It's a book card. It's clearly the book. Adore it. You even have sort of a secret passageway behind for secrets. So this would normally close and be part of the bookshelf, and yet, you know, we can see there's a secret passageway here into a hidden room, or else we're in the hidden room. Also, it could be, and it can be both because we can see books on that side. So, are we in the hidden room, or are we going to walk through into the hidden room and find something out? So it has that idea of gaining knowledge, but also of secrets. Really, really smart. Okay, the light was starting to overtake the thing, so I know that the lighting on this is going to be shifted, but that's just the way it goes. Anyways, I like that there is actually the act of writing things on paper, because this works for me with a letter very often. It's not so much about, it can be a contract and these kinds of things, but it also, in terms of general readings, it's very often that act of getting onto paper, taking from the mind and actually putting it into substance on a piece of paper, that first act of bringing something into being. And so this works really well for that. So we have two kind of sets that go together. And I quite like this because if you look, the scene, at least this one, we'll see on the next one, the scenes, you can see they're almost converging. You can see where they were maybe perhaps painted together like this. And so they're kind of both going towards this point in which they're going to then have to decide, are they going to go together, you know, down one or the other, which is kind of cool. Although we do see sort of different trees. We see spring, the seasons are changing. So we do see winter, a little bit of fall here, and then we see going into like spring and summer. So you see the seasons and the choices and decisions that are going to need to be made along the way. I really love these everyday people that are off, kind of, they have their work in their hands. They're just going, for me, Lenormand is very much a deck of the everyday life. It is a deck of just getting in there and doing the work that we need to do. And this really reflects this. I also like it in the Celtic Lenormand because there's a lord and a lady and a peasants. And I quite love the peasants because I think that for me, that is what the point of Lenormand is. I don't see this as something that they were necessarily using in the rich castles, but I see this as a thing that everybody was using in their everyday life. And so I quite love, these are probably the ones that I will keep in. However, I do love the alternate pair, which is kind of like that Lord and Lady. Again, you've got the same sort of archway here, sort of making a window. You see again the, you don't get the Four Seasons feel here, but you do get those same trees in the distance. But they're not out there, you know, they're more looking. Like, she reminds me of the Lady of Shalott, where she's just sort of spinning her wheel and she is looking out at life. She doesn't seem to be participating. Same thing with him. He looks like he is a swashbuckler and needs to be on a ship somewhere, but instead they're up in the castle and they're not really down in the world. Whereas these are people who are, they're in there and they're working and they're walking and they're stepping. So these are definitely the people that I will. But I love the looks of these, very fairy tale looking. They're beautiful. And again, you don't really, you know, when you're reading Lenormand, you're not putting those connotations. It's just a man, this is a woman. But just in terms of looking at the images, it's just beautiful. But I like the other ones. Which also then brings us to the 2 lily cards. So she's given you a white lily and like a tiger lily, orange lily, which are beautiful because some people, as I do, use the lily as to do with family and sexuality and harmony and balance. But sexuality is part of the equation, and she does talk about that in the quick little thing I saw. I mean, that is part of the equation. You don't make a family without there being sex. I mean, yes, there are ways nowadays to have children via adoption, although somebody had sex, right, in order for that to happen. Also in vitro fertilization and these kinds of things. So there are ways around that. But in general, you know, sexuality and sex is a component of a family circle and of making the next generation. And even in a relationship, to have a healthy, balanced relationship, often, you know, a healthy, whatever that balance of sexuality and physical intimacy. I don't necessarily mean sex, but the physicality of a relationship is part of that. And so it works for me, but I do prefer white to be there, even though I see that sensuality there. And so she's talking that you could use both to kind of bring out both aspects, but I do, you know, the very makeup of a lily with the stamen and the flower, sort of the openness of the flower reflecting female organs and then the stamen reflecting male organs. And again, you know, sexuality is a much broader thing than stamens, you know, penises and vaginas. Let's just, you know, but, you know, again, this is this deck came out of quite a binary idea of things. So that's why those representations came out. It doesn't mean that you can't use a lily to represent sex symbolically, even though obviously you can have a couple different flowers together or a bunch of stamens together, which technically we have here, right? So anyways, I like white. I really do love the traditional white lilies. So that's the one, even though this is beautiful. Isabel is in quite the mood today. She is all over anybody moving anywhere. Here we have the beautiful sun. It looks like the sun card in the Rider-Waite-Smith. And I think in her, it reminds me of the Anna Kay sun card, even though I don't know exactly what that looked like, but with all the sunflowers. But it's beautiful. I love it. It's a sun. Gorgeous moon. Absolutely love the moon. You can see the sun is rising. It's just, or the moon is rising, which is part of the aspect of the moon. It's just beautiful. I just love it. Here we have the key. Again, we do have a person in the key card, something I don't always prefer, but it's very prominent. This is a huge key here, right? So it's very prominent that this is key. And I do like that she's in the act of putting it into the lock, because it's that idea of the right key in the right lock, opening the door. And I like it. And she's actually pushing the door open. So I think that it works really well, and it's quite beautiful. Love the fish, pulling in that abundance. I mean, it's amazing. I do like swimming fish, excuse me, because I like that idea of the flow of resources, but I do like this act of pulling in all the abundance that the fish can represent. Beautiful anchor. Again, I do like, I mean, this is very traditional. I don't, understand because it's not hooked to a ship. So what is it actually anchoring? And it's not in the water, so it's not anchoring anything down. But it's quite a traditional image. It's very clear it's the anchor. It's very, rooted into the ground. And so, definitely has that heaviness of stability there. So it works. Absolutely love this cross because it is for me that idea of heavy burden. And there's this woman and she's carrying this water, and she's literally bending her back over, but the shadow does create a traditional, and even the shape of her arms creates a traditional cross. So you've got both. I mean, well done, well done to Miss Anna K. I don't know what her actual last name is, and I don't know if it even says it on here, but I'm just going to call her Anna K and say, just well done. On the whole deck, well done. So let me zip out. Okay, so cardstock wise, it's okay. It's a little thicker than I like. I will see how it shuffles. It feels a little thicker than a good playing cardstock. I do like, but I'm a riffle shuffler, so I think everybody will love this cardstock. I do like a little more bend and a little more flexibility because I'm a riffle shuffler. So you can't really bend it. You definitely can't bridge it. So I think that a lot of people will really love this. And for overhand shuffling, it feels really nice. It just has a little bit thicker. It's got a nice matte finish to it, but it's a little bit thicker of a cardstock than I like for playing card size decks. But that's all personal preference, right? There's just no way. There's no way to make everybody happy on your card stock choices, because everybody's different on what they like. But I think that if you are an overhand shuffler, you will quite like this. It shuffles really beautifully. Okay, I was going to pull for the woman card, but she's right here, so I won't do that. I just want to kind of show. So here's the man card. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, look at those. They're so beautiful. I really, really love this deck. And I really, at first I was kind of like, I don't know if I like how small the titles are, but it does make them really unobtrusive, and it lets the images just stand. But you can just see the perspective. You're down here in the wheat. Your eye contact with the child. You're sitting at this, looking out the window in wintertime, which is the season that it normally represents. You're moving up the path to the bear. You're stepping out into your life. This is done. This is final, right? You're receiving and or I feel like you're receiving, because that's what the bouquet is about. So somebody's giving you this bouquet joyfully. You see this very direct connecting and links. The mice is chewing away at even the reading itself. So it's just beautiful. She's an amazing artist, and I really didn't question that in the Anna K. I just have an issue with people, and some of the faces on the people are and that's what a lot of people love about the Anna K Tarot, is that their expressions are so expressive in the deck. And so that's, that's a plus for some people, but for me, it just didn't work at the time. But she's an amazing artist, and that's not something I ever question. But what this does is her artistry, is gorgeous. The perspective change pulls you into a personal space that I think that Kipper and Lenormand really exist in. And I love the way that the cards overlap the borders, which again pulls you into the scene and the situation. It's just gorgeous. It's just really a beautiful, beautiful deck. 100% looking forward to using this deck. Excuse me so very much. Almost made it. I'm going to wrap this up before I start hacking. But yeah, I'm really glad that I picked this one up because it's quite beautiful.